I am one bad pig. You are one bad pig. We are one bad pig. Today, on the Heavens Metal Show, we're going to talk one bad pig stories. Pastor Bob drinks coffee. I've been down on one of these, Munster Low Carb, for the last 13 years, every weekday for the last 13 years. Hey, hey, hey. First, an homage to Tony OK. I handle snakes. I hug them and I kiss them. And if they kill me, I'm sure gonna miss them. Hey, so today I'm gonna just tell some random one bad pig stories. They're friends of mine. They're from Austin, Texas. They started here. So we're gonna see how this goes. See if you fire me from the show. You need a new host. So One Bad Pig started as a joke. The members of One Bad Pig, a bunch of friends drove from Austin up to Grace Lake, Illinois on the July 4th weekend of 1985, which was our second annual Cornerstone Festival. And on the way back, I believe, they were driving through St. Louis, and there was a billboard for a radio station that had a pig with sunglasses, and somebody said, "That's one bad pig." And somebody else said, "Hey, that would be a great name for a band." And so they went and had pizza, and dogs were barking. It was just like destiny was to be had, because when dogs bark, it's like, you know, it's like the approval from somewhere. Anyway, for the rest of that trip home, they were joking around about their fictitious band, One Bad Pig. Well, two of the guys in that group were Paul Kupek, a musician, and Kerry Womack, a pastor. And Kerry could sing. In fact, I went to go see him at his church, Bee Caves Baptist Church, a little tiny church in the hill country of Austin. And he sang "I Saw the Lord" by Dallas Holm. So he had a voice, he could sing on key and whatnot. Anyway, later on they decided, let's take this joke and make it real. And on Labor Day weekend that summer, 1985, the Christian music scene in Austin put on a Christian music festival at Zilker Park. And it was just a little grassy hillside area that had a stage. Sometimes there's like, my daughter's dance schools performed a dance on that stage before. Sometimes they'll do plays in the park. But it's a very modest stage, in a little hillside where you could sit and watch the performance. One Bad Pig was introduced, and Paul Kupek stood behind this giant plywood wall and did like this. He wasn't playing Eruption, but he did like an Eddie Van Halen guitar solo with lots of dive bombs and hammer-ons, and then he threw a little toy guitar over the fence at the end of the solo, like, you know, it's broken now, won't work. And so One Bad Pig came out, did some songs like Blow and Glow, Blow, Spirit Blow, and Then Through Me Flow, so I can go tell the world. And 6, which was from Isaiah 6, where the song starts off really fast and then it has a break, and the singer says, you know, my sleep was shattered by blinding light, high upon the throne, you know, I can't remember all the words right now. And Isaiah's vision of seeing God is reenacted in music. And one thing about One Bad Pig, in the early days especially, they would play the rock clubs in Austin, little dive bars like the Beach, which wasn't even the 6th Street section, it was over by the university campus. And local punk bands would play with them. And this one band called Criminal Crew, spelled with K's, invited them to some of their shows. I remember one of the band members asked him, like, you know, why do you want us to play with you? You know, like, we're like this Christian band. And he goes, we like you guys, we respect you, you know, because they have this punk rock ethos of information is important, and punk rock was this radical type of music to express information, and whether it's anti-government or this or that. And these were Christians in One Bad Pig, and they just appreciated, even though these were atheist kids, guys, young 20-somethings, they appreciated having another voice have a say on the platform. And it was fun, and they used to have people spit on them and you know, probably spilled beer on them when they played, and they played really close to the audience. But in One Bad Pig's early material, like those songs were really raw and had a lot of street cred. In Cornerstone '86, the following year, you know, their joke turned into reality, and they were invited to play the Cornerstone Festival. And they played up in Grace Lake, Illinois, in one of those metal sheds. They had they recorded a 6-song EP called A Christian Band, BANNED, and they went up there and they played a show. And John Trott of Cornerstone Magazine told the band later that he was outside or near the exit of the metal building where One Bad Pig played, and a man and his wife's like, "Come on, honey, this is definitely not of God." And everybody got a good laugh about that, because One Bad Pig was all about God. They were unabashedly and unashamedly preaching the gospel. It was so funny. So I'm going to jump around a little bit, trying to go in chronological order here, but I'm just going to jump around. Their first album that was on a label, initially they were going to sign with a small punk rock label in Austin, Texas. And for the life of me, I can't remember the name of that label at the moment, but they were going to call their album Mountains of Dead Babies. And I seem to recall that the label wanted to ixnay that idea. And long story short, they ended up signing with Pure Metal Records, and Billy Smiley of Whiteheart produced them. And some, you know, armchair quarterbacks and punk rock purists will say that, you know, that's when they got their punk street edge watered down. Well, certainly that did happen, but that first album, you know, I don't think it sounds like, you know, watered down to the point where it's not punk rock. Some people snicker at the idea of calling One Bad Pig punk because they had a commercial appeal to them, but you know, so did the Clash. Even the Sex Pistols had some production values to their music. So you know, a lot of punk rock bands are real musicians. They're writing songs to, you know, get a message across, but they wanted appeal, and some of these punk rock bands, you know, sold a lot of records. So you know, selling out's just kind of a silly argument. It's like I don't know, but I thought it was funny that you know, some man said, "Come on, honey, this is obviously not of God." So One Bad Pig later on, after their first album on Pure Metal, they switched record labels to Myrrh Records, which is the record label of Amy Grant. And Myrrh was really interested in signing some Christian heavy metal bands. They were on a long search. One of the stories I've told on this video show was the Rage of Angels story. They were one of the bands that Myrrh Records looked at really seriously. They looked at Holy Soldier really seriously. So One Bad Pig was, I guess, essentially the second Christian heavy metal, you know, band to sign to Myrrh Records. And they, you know, the reason they were able to get out of their contract was partly because, you know, Pure Metal Records / Refuge, they had a reputation of not paying royalties. Most of the bands on that label, so they never received any money for publishing or mechanical royalties for album sales or any of that. And you know, so there were some allegations that this label, which is now defunct, always came up with excuses on why not to pay. You know, because when a record label signs a band, the record label is like a bank. They bankroll or they finance the recording studio, which back in the day especially was not cheap. You're talking at least 10 grand, 15 grand, 20 grand to make an album sometimes. And they would make the band pay them back through royalties. So unless the band sold enough albums to cover that amount spent on the album, they would never get a dime, because they had not recouped the cost of making their albums. But in addition to the recording studio, all marketing, all promotion money spent had to be recouped as well. So the record label could say, well, I had to have this business dinner with this person. Well, we had to do an ad here and blah, blah, blah. I had to promote this tour. And they can, you know, add on to or expand what money was spent and needed to be recouped in order to deny them being paid anything. So anyway, Myrrh Records gave One Bad Pig in advance. I think it was like $10,000 check. And Kerry Womack, God bless him, he felt led to give that money to Ray Nenow, who essentially ripped the band off, but he felt led to do it, and he he was the leader of the band, so they signed over their $10,000 publishing advance from Myrrh Records and their publishing company to Ray Nenow. So we actually got paid for letting One Bad Pig get released, even though probably shouldn't have, because the band never got the money that they earned. So when One Bad Pig signed to Myrrh, their first record, which was their second full-length album, was called Swine Flu. And they did a photo shoot, and they went out to LA, and Kerry Womack bought that leather jacket with the frizz on it. Philip Owens showed up with a surprise, and he took these black jeans and painted little pink pigs all over them as like a wallpaper pattern, which was kind of cool. And Streak Wheeler, the bass player at the time, he posed on the album cover like he was looking around a wall. You can see like part of his face looking around a wall, looking around the edge of the album cover. It was kind of mimicked after the In Excess Kick album. And Paul Kupek was on a skateboard. He borrowed my skateboard, my Powell Double Beamer. I should have brought it to show you on this video. Anyway, so one day Paul came over to my apartment and said, "Hey Doug, since I'm posing on the album cover with a skateboard, I need to learn some tricks, so you come teach me some tricks." So I went out there and told him what a kick turn was and an ollie, and I didn't teach him how to do an ollie because I still don't know how to do an ollie. Ollie's an advanced trick. And skateboarding in the 70s evolved to pool riding and vertical riding and ramp riding, and then the skate parks closed down because insurance costs and whatnot, and they went out, and then skateboard had a resurgence in the late 80s, in the 80s, with street riding, and ollies became the trick du jour that everybody learned how to do, where you kick the tail up, and then you balance your feet up in the air, and you bring the board up, kind of like an invisible suction cup. You get the board up, you keep it, you kick it, you tap it so it flies up, and you keep it level with your feet, and you can jump over things, you can ollie over things. So I didn't teach Paul how to ollie, but I decided I made up a trick, and I said, "This is called a panty." And I finally told him, "No, that trick's really not called a panty," because I know he was just going to tell somebody, "Yeah, Doug taught me this trick," or "I learned this trick. I'm going to do a panty." And then people will go, "What? What's that?" And it's just a dumb prank that I pulled on Paul. Another prank I pulled on Paul was when they recorded a live album at Cornerstone called Blow the House Down. And the day after Cornerstone Festival was over, One Bad Pig stayed. The stage was still set up. They brought in a sound truck, and they did overdubs in the same studio, the stage there. And I'm not going to say it was me, because that would incriminate myself, but somebody who ran a Christian heavy metal magazine, when Paul was on stage doing a guitar solo overdub, he wiped a booger on his tennis shoe. I mean, who does that? It's gross. Another prank pulled on Paul. During that show, One Bad Pig had all these props. They had like a little swimming pool that they filled up with whipping cream and shaving cream and chocolate syrup and sprinkles. And they would take a little kid and throw him in the pool, like stage dive into the pool. They did Smash the Guitar, and they had like a dozen guitars, and people lined up on stage, and they got to smash a guitar on stage. Scott Wenzel was up there. They did the song Cut Your Hair, where they had a bunch of people long hair banging their heads, and one guy actually got his hair cut. Found out later that he got paid to get his hair cut, because he was part of the video, part of the movie. He got some money for getting his hair cut, which is cool. It's not very punk, Steven. Anyway, they had these giant wooden platforms. They weren't crosses, I don't think, but these giant wooden platforms that had these spinner fireworks on them. And they had one person on each side of the stage holding it when they lit those things. And they started spiraling and sending sparks. And we could hear the guy, one of the volunteers from Austin, can't remember his name, he was holding that thing. "Oh, Lord Jesus, oh dear Lord Jesus, help me, Lord Jesus." He was getting sparked on the sparks were just hitting his back, and he was burned up. And he was screaming and praying out loud as he could barely stand the pain. Later on, when we were moving, one of the members, I won't say his name, Mr. Prank, was ready to the giant truck that had One Bad Pig's Ryder U-Haul rental truck was parked perpendicular to the sound truck that Cornerstone or whoever had rented, and Paul thought the gear shift was in drive and it was really in reverse. He hit the gas, boom, and he backed into that truck, and the two handles on the edge of the truck, broke holes into the other truck, and they had to pay for that. That came out of their budget. Another time at Cornerstone, Petra was playing the main stage, and because One Bad Pig had covered Judas Kiss, a Petra hit, Petra started putting that into their set, and they actually took one of their choruses near the end of the song, and they did the One Bad Pig style of the chorus, which is, "This was just like Judas Kiss," really fast. And so Paul came up with the idea, "Hey Carrie, let's go up on stage and stage dive during the Petra set, because they're gonna do that song on main stage." So they devised a plan to do that. So Carrie and Paul talked their way on stage past security by saying, hey, they had badges because they were performing artists or whatever, and they said, Petra's doing the song that we covered, and we're gonna go sing the chorus. And they're like, okay. They let them on stage, and so during the part of a song, or they get to the chorus, they get up on the stage by the drum riser, and Paul sprints, and he launches himself up in the air to do a stage dive, and he turns around so he can land on his back, and the crowd is all gonna catch him. But these were Petra fans. They didn't know what a stage diver was. They weren't seeing the Crucified and the lead and One Bad Pig and Scattered Few play on the side stage. They didn't know what stage diving was, so they all split, and Paul Kupek, who had launched himself off an 8-foot stage, it was at least 6 foot, as tall as that board, that wood, that's about 7 foot, 7 to 8 feet in the air, up in the air, landed on his back on the ground. He could have died. Oh my goodness. And Carrie Womack stopped, and the other security guard ran over to Carrie and goes, "That's where you were supposed to stop." He thought Carrie was a fellow stage guard, so Carrie didn't get in trouble. But those are One Bad Pig story for you. One time I saw One Bad Pig play one of the encore stages at Cornerstone, and during the music I could hear somebody weeping. And I looked under the stage, and there was a guy that, under the conviction of the Holy Spirit from Carrie's preaching and stuff, had just gone under there and was just weeping before the Lord. And I thought, man, that's like a cool thing that I got to see, because one thing Carrie always did during the song Isaiah, when Isaiah was like confronted with his own sinfulness, and the angel put a coal on his lips to make him holy, Carrie would lament, and he would bring up something personal in his life to talk about relating to being a sinner in God's holy presence. And so fire and brimstone preaching wasn't exactly it, but it was for real, and it was legit, and people's lives were changed. And this kid was underneath the stage during most of the set, weeping and cleansing his soul and doing business with God, and that was really cool to see. Philip Owens, the drummer, and Carrie Womack, the singer, I got to play Cupid for both of them. I didn't have to do much, but I just kind of told Caroline, or told Philip, "Hey, Caroline likes you," and I told Carrie, "Hey, Sarah likes you," and that's all it took. And they asked the girls out, and they're married to this day, and they're awesome. One Bad Pig played Nashville. They have a gospel music week every year. They used to, back when the Christian music industry was thriving, and there was retail stores that sold product and radio stations that played music. They smashed their guitars on stage, and they actually had an extra piece of plywood, but they still broke through that plywood, and they put a hole in the stage. Had to pay money to for the damage of their stage. They were always doing wacky stage props. During a show in Austin, they did the Larry Norman cover Christmas Time. They had like little Christmas trees out, and Carrie had a chainsaw, and he would cut down these Christmas tree displays. And like I said, they had the swimming pool. One year, when One Bad Pig, I think of the year they were filming their live video, the Crucified was playing in one of the opposite tents, which is really an ironic billing to put One Bad Pig opposite the Crucified. But rumor has it that between one song, you could hear the noise from the next tent, and Mark Solomon looked over underneath the tent and saw all the sparklers and everything, and he said on his microphone, "One Bad Pig, that's not a concert, that's a circus." So there you go. That's 15 minutes or so of One Bad Pig stories. I hope you enjoyed. I hope it got you thinking. Tell us some of your One Bad Pig stories. Join the discussion. Have fun with this. Till next time.